Hi everyone, my name is Jay and welcome to my channel. And today I want to speak about the OpenAI's dev date, last date, 12th one, where they actually released the model called O3. And a lot of people are claiming and excited that it's an AGI model or it does have some sort of a artificial general intelligence. So I want to speak about the specific thing on how people are actually claiming it to be an AGI and what this O3 model did so different when compared to the Gemini or any Claude models. So people are saying that it's an AGM based model. So it all comes back to one of the dataset, which is the ARC price. Dataset has been created by the co-founder of Keras, and this dataset has been specifically targeted on how you can actually measure AGI. So let's say what is an AGI. So AGI, according to this author, would be like it's not how you test or how you perform on the things which you know. It's how or what is your ability to learn new things and how you can actually say solve new tasks. Like imagine that you are really good at math, but now we wanted to test how you are actually doing in chemistry. So now you should have an ability not only to do the math but also learn chemistry at hand and able to solve the problems at hand. So that's the first important part of it. And if you look at this data set, the data set is pretty interesting. So you can go back to see the data set. It's simple data set for a specific small examples, but if you actually scale the data set from a range of 0 to 32 columns, the data set becomes really complex. If you look at the data set, it does have a input block where some of the squares of that block will be basically labeled in a color, and you need to have like a pattern where you actually fill that. So in this case you can see that the unfinished square has been filled with a sky blue base square, and it basically finishes. And you can see that it's the same in the example 2 where you have unfinished block of squares and you finish it with a sky blue color and it basically finishes. And finally you need to come here and you can actually see that you should just finish the same similar to the other ones. You should just fill the other block of the square with the sky blue color. But as you can see that it's just a 7 by 7 matrix, but it does have from 32 by 32. So you can see how big the scale is, and the colors are also varies from a wide range of things. You can see that you have different colors from which you can choose. And they basically claim that OpenAI actually did a really good thing on this dataset, and all the existing models like Claude and everything actually failed on this one. And it also comes back to the point where one of the research paper Apple released recently basically states that a lot of these models perform really good on like a standard benchmarks, but even though you deviate a bit from those benchmarks, the models actually fail really bad. So you can see that they actually tested this the private model of the O3 on like 100 tasks, 400 tasks and everything, and you can see that the score is really good. That you cannot actually compare it with the other models. The only specific reason is that none of the other models actually are really good at it. They really fail badly until now, so they haven't found a way to test the other models as of now. So my take on this one is that I don't personally think like it is an AGI or anything. It's pretty good at solving at this task. I definitely agree with that, but I think in a like a short span of like 6 months or under less than 6 months, you will definitely see like Claude model or like Google Gemini model will also try to solve this one, as everyone is saying that if you solve this more like task, then your model might be an AGI. So everyone will basically give it a shot and they'll try to solve it. As you can see, they actually showed one more example from the ARC dataset. If you look at the example closely on the left hand side, you can actually see that they're like a yellow square, but inside there is like a two red dots. And in the other part of the bigger square, you see another yellow square filled with three blue dots, and you can see the output would be that proportional to the number of dots which are present, you should actually draw the boundary around the yellow square. So on the left hand side, as you see two red dots, you actually draw a boundary of length 2 around the yellow square, and in the down you can actually see three dots, so you actually draw a boundary of like width 3 in that one, and you can see it follows again. As you can see that O3 actually achieved a really state of the art on the hidden test set of the Arc AGI. And you can see on the x-axis, it actually shows the compute per task, which is that if you give the O3 the highest amount of compute and basically says that reason at the best, then it basically achieves a performance of 87.5%. And it is on par with the humans who achieved actually performance of 85%. And O3 on the lower end of the memory actually achieved like 75.7%, which is also pretty good. And this is the first time they actually tested like a really large language models or like models of this type on this data set. And this is one of the reasons why people are claiming it to be an AGI. This is one of the important benchmark which they showed, which is that as you see that over a time GPT-2 3 4 doesn't really did any good job on this data set, but from O1 preview they actually started seeing the improvement. As you can see that O3 did achieve a really good score on this one. As you can see, the next benchmark is competition code. It's an open source competition of a coding platform conducted by Code Forces. And you can see actually the O3 actually achieved an highest score of like 2727. And it's almost equal to the 175th top score. The top score is around 4000, but a model achieving a score of around like top 175 humans is really big deal. And you can see on the right hand side, as they actually released the smaller variants of these O3 models, because they are actually very quick and they're gonna cost you pretty less if you're gonna use it in your production and so on. And you can see that the cost for the O3 mini is actually really low as expected when compared to the O3, which is like really high. And one of the estimation is that if you want to run one task for O3, it's gonna cost you around $3,500. And you can see that O3 mini has three variants. One is low, medium, and high, and that is the reasoning capacity of that. So whenever you call the model, by default, you can actually say whether it's a like a really hard reasoning task, then you need to keep it as a high. If it is not, you can actually keep it as a medium and low. And you can actually see that O3 mini does a really good job at the competitive math. And as you know that O3 mini is actually very small model, so the latency is gonna be pretty structured outputs. Like imagine in a case where you wanted a JSON output, and whether the model can actually output a JSON or not, and whether your model has like a 4 or 5 agentic functions, whether your model is actually calling them really good or not. And finally, live bench coding, where the output generated by the model can be directly executed without any modification of code. And you can see that O3 mini does a pretty good job in most of the cases. I know it can't beat O1 in most of the cases because the O1 is like a really bigger model, but you can see that it did a pretty good job actually, and sometimes it did beat O1 and GPT-4o. And you can see the same thing with respect to PhD science questions, where O3 mini does a very good and decent job when compared to the O3, the bigger model itself. Even though there is a like a difference of 10%, but you can see that O3 mini is pretty cheap, and most of the people does wanted to use a small language models these days, so it's a pretty good deal. And finally, with respect to the research math, this is a big and huge improvement, where you can actually see that from 2% they actually went to like 25.2%. And research math is like a very good data set. Even you give it to like famous mathematicians, they're going to take like a couple of hours to days to actually solve these problems. And O3 actually solving this is one more sign people are indicating that it may be an AGI where it does actually reach a human level performance when you compare it to the humans who are like a excellents or pioneers in that field. Thank you, everyone.